Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Pegi Robinson. Today's guest is Sherry Anshara, and she's had 5 near-death experiences. So Sherry, if it's okay, I'll just let you take the floor. It sounds like you have a lot to say.
I do. I have a lot to say. Well, let's see. I would have to say that my first near-death experience was at 3 years old. And so I had a lovely family, still do. And fortunately, I was raised by 3 teenagers. And so I had this incredible vocabulary. So they never, baby talk to me. So my first NDE was at 3 when I told my mother, like, who are you people? They were lovely to me. I kid you not. Spoiled me. It was wonderful. But I thought, like, who are you people? And I had a real challenge. I would say to my mother, how come the lights around kids are big? And how come the lights around big people are little? And she'd say, Sherry, there are no lights. So I had a handle in my family is, Sherry, where did you come from? Isn't that funny? And so I was talking to dead people, but they weren't, Peggy, they weren't dead. So I would say to my mother, and this is one of the things, the poor lady, I'm telling you, she put up with a lot. So I said, well, how come the people I see that you can't see make more sense to me than the people we see, because they don't make sense to me? And my older brother, who was 11 years older, and this is a long time ago, before the movie, and you had to develop a sense of humor. To me, that was part of the old survival technique. But he asked me years ago if I was talking to dead people. And I said, well, we do all the time. They're like in the grocery store, driving around, in the banks. He didn't think that was funny. But that's what they look like to me. They're just like totally zoned and nothing going on. Make sense?
Yeah.
Funny. So I, as the work that I do, if you want to call it, as my profession, as a medical intuitive, I have had, because of these near-death experiences, though I was extremely intuitive, and what I discovered, that it's not woo-woo, that intuition is just our natural innate ability to discern what is correct for us or not correct, instead of right or wrong. So through these years, I have taught what is called non-duality and been writing about it since the 90s. And people said, what's that? So it came to me even as a child, that what is right or wrong isn't necessarily what's correct for you. So does that make sense, Peggy?
I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so here I use this as an example because I'm very practical. The courses I teach are called Intuitive Powers Practical Applications. And so, for instance, I'm sure you love chocolate. You love chocolate?
Yep.
I hate chocolate. No, I don't hate chocolate. But it doesn't, because I teach resonance, not frequency and vibration. Those are byproducts. So I can't resonate to chocolate. I never could, even as a kid, but I knew it. But let me tell you, my brothers loved Halloween because I would go out, because they were a lot older. So I would go and get all this chocolate for them. So it's not wrong for me or right for me, or right for you or wrong for you. It's just not correct for me. And so though I don't eat chocolate because it doesn't resonate and it actually gives me a headache, I have friends over. I just had a 20-hour class, and I had all these wonderful chocolate things for everyone, and I enjoy watching them enjoy the chocolate. But so it's just not correct for me. However, it doesn't mean that there's things that, that I like or love that would be correct for you. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
And so we've been taught in duality that this is right and this is wrong. And so through my near-death experiences, I discovered within myself this knowledge. So in 1965, I had a near-death experience and destroyed my brand new 1965 Corvette. Oh my God, it was terrible. But anyway, I was hit twice by a 396 Chevy Chevelle that came in. It was to hit me so hard, it bent the frame. I launched over a curb. I took down a 30-foot evergreen tree and went through a cement block underneath this woman's house. Isn't that fabulous? And ended up getting out going, ta-da. But the reason that I created this, there always is a reason, though it might not be reasonable. And so in duality, we have these belief systems. And one of them, this is not judging it, is grow up, get married, have children, live happily ever after. But as a little child, I said to my mother, I don't like to get married, and I don't like to have any kids, because I said, I just would like to have fun. And I had two older brothers that were 11 and 9 years older, and they were entrepreneurs and they did all kinds of stuff. And I thought, wow, I'd like to do that too. And at 12, I announced to my mother that I was going to live in a bachelor pad. And she goes, you can't, you're a girl. I go, why not? And so I grew up in Michigan, you were in Ohio. This is not a judgment. So you had early American homes or ranches, and you grew up with maple furniture. I don't resonate. And so my brothers, they were like really happy. They had these glass furniture and chrome. And I thought, oh my God, this is where I'd like to live. And so my mother said, you can't do that. You're a girl. And I thought, why can't I do that? And so anyway, so I did end up getting married, wasn't pregnant, but had to, because that was the time. So it's not a right or wrong. And so I cried, and everybody thought I was crying because I was happy, as I was mortified. And this is not against him. This has nothing to do with it. It was about me. And so in my cellular experience, I call this the unconscious. That's where I assist people, is in the unconscious, because the subconscious is in the left computer brain. And I actually define, when I'm working with doctors or medical people or therapists, how the physical body works. And this is some of the things that I learned through these NDEs. It was like going to the multiversities. So anyway, so in this unconscious, it said, till death do us part. And so, in sickness and in health, till death do you part. Well, I wasn't going to create being sick, because we create everything. So I created this accident and died. And I actually thought, yay, I'm out. I'm so happy. I'm free. Not so fast. And I was back. But that shifted my resonance. And I actually stayed married for a long time, but I went into business, became like my brothers, became so successful, I got sued for alimony. Peggy, isn't that great? So I'm not wronging it or righting it anyway, but it gave me the opportunity to become more of myself. So I had businesses, and I became a pilot, and here's a belief system of duality. So at 30, that's why I assist people to get rid of the belief systems and believe in yourself. So I am so grateful for these 5 near-death experiences and going to the multiversities. So at 30, I said to my mother and sister, and she's 12 years older, that I was going to learn how to fly an airplane. And they said, this is the dichotomy of duality. You're a girl and you're too old. So I'm going like, what? I'm
At 30?
Yes, 30. But you have to remember the timeline.
Yeah.
And so I bought an airplane. I didn't tell them. Isn't that funny? So it was just easier, and I always loved experiences. So I even took aerobatic lessons, having flown out of body so much. I had no interest in becoming an aerobatic pilot, but I took aerobatic lessons because I just would like to know what the experience is. Does that make sense? And what this taught me through these experiences, these NDEs, is that when people say, Sherry, why am I here? Well, you don't have a one thing. There is no one thing. There's no one purpose. You have multi-purposes of why you're here. And one of the many multi-purposes, my kitty just popped up here, one of the is to create the experiences that you came here to create, to experience. But what happens many times is in our belief systems, I call these the duality belief systems. So I'll ask you, Peggy, what's the first letter of the word belief?
B.
And the first letter of the word system?
S. Bullshit.
Yeah, thank you for saying it. It's bullshit. And so the bullshit is, Sherry, you can't do this. You can't. Oh, I could live in but they didn't have the word back then, the old days, bachelorette. I could have a bachelorette, apartment instead of bachelor. Apartment is like ridiculous. And so we are taught to fit in boxes, and those boxes are duality. And then we get labels that you are a sister, a mother, a brother, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we're more than that. We have so much more within our abilities to create. So I actually teach people how to connect left brain, right brain. Isn't that fabulous? So I am so grateful for this trip to the multiverse. And it actually triggered cellular memory. So how did that happen? So in 1991, I had my third near-death experience. I'm single. I'm on the East Coast, and it was a setup, a total setup, Peggy. So I was on the East Coast at the Javits Center, and I was doing a trade show for the company that I work for. And I hear, hi, I'm so happy to see you. And I'm looking up 25,000 people there. And this gal walks up to me and she said, remember me? And I actually went to high school with her. This is the setup. So we talked and she said, when will you be back to the East Coast? And I just had an event this weekend, Memorial Weekend, 31 years ago. So I said, I'm going to be on the East Coast in Boston in a month for Memorial Weekend, but I'm going to go back to Michigan on Friday, but I'm going to be at a conference. And she said, my husband and I are going to be in Boston. When are you leaving? I said, 5 o'clock. I'm headed for the airport to go back. She said, we'll pick you up and we will take you to Old Lyme, Connecticut. We have an old house. It was a sea cabin. I said, oh my God, that sounds fun. I'm in it for the adventure, right? So they pick us up. And so I've been up since like 5 in the morning. So we get there and it's like 8 at night. And so we had dinner and her husband says, you know, why don't you girls go over to Old Saybrook, Connecticut and go to dinner, but I'm a little bit tired, but you two have a good time. So we get in the car and we go to Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Old Saybrook, Connecticut is like where Katharine Hepburn lived, was very wealthy. And she said, I'll take you to this restaurant called the Dock and Dine. And I turned into the Dock and Dine. And so there were yachts parked there and it was lovely. So it's about 11 o'clock at night. Now we roll up and we get out of her car and here comes the setup, but I didn't pay attention. So she said, hey, there's some people over there. Would you mind if I just go say hi? Oh, not at all. I'm looking at this beautiful restaurant in the harbor and yachts. And so I'm walking and this lady backs up in front of me and smashes the car behind her. And she rolls out of the car. She's drunk, a skunk, drunk. So I learned something. She said, will you help me? And I teach wordology is your biology. So I don't help anybody. I assist them because helping doesn't work. So she rolled out and here I am. So I have my purse on my shoulder and I get into the car. So I move it forward and then I move it back a little bit and hits the car behind me again. I thought, oh my God, what's going on? So I got the car and I thought, now I'm going to get sued and all this stuff's going through my computer brain. And so I put the car, moved it up, put it neutral and it's shaking. All of a sudden the car takes off. It's going like 0 to 60.
What?
I know, it was so cool. I kid you. So I see this pole barrier. It's just like poles because this is, you know, around the harbor, the yachts. And so the car just takes off and I hit this pole barrier and it bends and it launches me about 40 feet in the air.
Oh
And
my
as
gosh.
it was fabulous. And as it started to roll over, I go right out of body. And I said, okay, yay, this time I made it. There is no coming back. And the car goes clunk into the, you know, the Connecticut River, which is dark and dirty. And this is a, you know, Memorial Friday night. And it was like 11:30 now or whatever it was.
Excuse me.
And so when that happened, I had the most spectacular experience. And that is what led me to what I do today for the last 31 years. So I smashed my head. I broke my back, broke my neck, my head out of, my brain was out of place, which we didn't know. But anyway, so now I'm back. So now I end up on like a ship. It just is, you know, it just what happened. But I met these fabulous people. I don't call them beings, they're people. And I call them the 12 wise guys because this is Connecticut, the mob, you know, whatever. So I met the 12 wise guys. And they are the ones that explained to me that we make contracts. I went, what contract? And I'm sitting there and this is the setup to it. It's hilarious. I have a black and white knit top and jacket on. And in the middle of this jacket, I'm in the middle of my top is a red anchor. Is that hilarious? An anchor. I'm anchoring myself, right? It's the setup. I mean, who would know? And so they have no idea how long I was under there. I had no water in my lungs, totally protected as I was meeting with them and getting all kinds of information. And I'm going, I'm not interested. If I signed a contract, I must have missed the little print. They said, no, you missed the big print, starting with the word I. Now, what do you mean? I am doing this? Yes, you are. Whatever. They were lovely. And what they taught me was unconditional acceptance, which was far deeper and clearer. And I teach people this than unconditional love. Because in unconditional love, there's always a condition, right? I'll love you unconditionally, Peggy. However, or if, but in unconditional acceptance, you are just resonating and you just accept. And so they taught me so much. And then the next thing you know, after our meeting, however long it is, I popped through, the window was open, just like the window was open in the Corvette, even though it was December, it was open. It was a beautiful day. So I just came floating up in this dirty water and I hit the surface and I'm yelling, I can't swim. Now I've had 2 homes with pools. Honest to God, I cannot swim, nor am I interested. Pools are just for splashing around on the shallow end and floating around. To me, that's all. And so all of a sudden I felt these arms and they pulled me up. And now this is docks for yachts. We're not talking rowboat docks. And I was being lifted and there was a man on the dock. And now there's a whole bunch of people, you know, lights and everything, because, you know, they know that this car flipped over. And some people saw me, you know, go under. And so I am lifted up by this man and this person, this woman who lifted me up. And so I'm laying on the dock and I said, I have to get up and go home. And he goes, you're injured. So I put my hand up here and my finger went right into my head. You don't even see this. There's no scar there. So it went into my head and all this watery blood and then the ambulance came. So there's always these continuing setups. And I said, I have to go home. And he goes, where do you live? I go, Michigan. He goes, we're in Connecticut. I go, I know, but I have to go home. And so I did, like a few, maybe less a year later, 6 months later, the police, when I finally got to talk to the police, they said that this woman, here was her name and her address, and she lived on one of the yachts, and she was the one that was the one that lifted me up. But the truth is, when I sent it out, it came back, no such person, no such address. Isn't that funny? But anyway, so now I'm carted off, and this is the big one, to the hospital. And I get this lovely old doctor in the emergency room, and he says to me, I have to sew up. And I said, you know what, somewhere in my experience, I would like a plastic surgeon. Please don't. But I missed my opportunity. So this wonderful Dr. Cherry comes and he sews me up. And I could have got a facelift then. How stupid, and insurance would have paid for it, but I wasn't that clear. And so I ended up being in the hospital in Connecticut for a week. But what came to me is, and this is a teaching hospital I was in. And so I had psychiatrists, psychologists, and med students, and the doctors come, and they couldn't figure me out, especially because there was a gal in the room with me that had MS, and they would bring her little girl in, and she would say, the lady of the light, lady light, and she would crawl in bed with me, you know, which freaked her parents out, you know, and I mean, I was a mess. My face is swollen and stitches, and I was horrible. But she didn't care. And she would crawl up and she would hug me. And so then I started sort of like floating around the hospital. But they gave me these dire predictions of what my life would be like. And we did not know my brain was out of place. I found out later when I came back home, or actually when I moved to Arizona. And so that was 7 years later. So it was very trying. So I'm laying in bed and I said to myself, you know what, there has to be something smarter in our body than this brain, because I knew my brain was screwed up, but I didn't know how to explain it. And I said, because I look around and I see when people get into their head, they make up stories, and stories are not productive, or they make up stuff about this person or that person or themselves, even say they're not good enough and all that. And so as I'm laying in the hospital bed by myself, focusing, I said, what is it in my body that is really my intelligence? Because it isn't this computer brain. It is not. I didn't call it a computer brain at the time, but it's not. And 2 words, Peggy, popped up out of my body called cellular memory. And that changed my life. So I called a cab and I went to Hartford, Connecticut, airport. And the doctor said, we're not ready to release you. But I knew I had to get out of there. And the reason is they kept asking me, including the police, how did you get out of the car? And I said, I could tell you how I got out of the car, that I was assisted, or before the lady pulled me up, or that didn't exist, or I could tell you what you think how I got out of the car. And they also said, well, how do we think you got out? So I lied and made up a story. And that was good because I knew that if I said what was really happening, especially in 1991, they would have carted me off to the psychiatric ward. And that was not going to happen because I was not crazy. I knew exactly what was going on.
You were smart enough to lie.
Yes, I did. But see, I learned that back when I was 3, because when I would say I did predict, honestly, I predicted 9/11 in 95 when I was in Michigan. And people say it's because you're intuitive. No, it's because it's trends. If you follow the dualistic trends, there's always a war going on. Our peace is based on war. Well, that never made any sense to me. And so I was always asking questions. So I thought there is no way I'm going to tell them what happened, or I would end up in a nut house, because that happened to someone I know, and that was near and dear to me. And I thought, just keep your mouth shut and don't say anything, because they don't get it. And I'm not woo, and I say this in the kindest, loving way. I'm not a psychopsychic. I am not a healer. You heal yourself. All I've done is develop a methodology for people to connect to that pure cellular memory. There's no such thing as a past life. I'm not wrong in your belief systems, but you are a time continuum. So I teach individuals how to connect to their continuum. And over 67 of my clients, we have found them on Google or Wikipedia, and some look exactly the same. I kid you not. It's remarkable because I can assist them because I can see their field, aura, electromagnetic, bioenergy, it's the field. And it comes out like a movie, but it always did, even when I was a kid. But we all have these extraordinary abilities, but their belief system out of us. So anyway, so now I go and I fly home, and I couldn't work, and I was in the corporate world. I couldn't do it because my brain was screwed up. And so everything I had, and I was a very successful businesswoman. That's how I got sued for alimony, bought an airplane and all that. But it was amazing. And I left a marriage with nothing, literally nothing. And 5 years later, I bought this beautiful home, 4 levels with a pool in Michigan. You're from Ohio. Do you know what it's like having a pool? It's like crazy, but it was what I was looking for. And that all went away. And then when I was still in Michigan, this is hilarious.
Why did it go away?
Because I couldn't work. I couldn't, I could not work. It just.
After that third NDE?
Yeah, I couldn't. Everything was like screwed up, and everything looked screwed up to me. And so, but I knew, and they told me in the third NDE, call my peeps, that I would begin to write books. And after that, I started my first book in 91 on a 286 computer. And believe me, I have no technology genes in my entire body. Not Peggy. But I started writing my first book, and it was called The Age of Inheritance, the activation of the 13 chakras. I'll put a plug in, which turned in this book, Take Back Your Power. It went from 138 pages to 5. And this is, see, I teach out of this too. And
now,
so
when you talk about this, are you meaning, say, our great-great-grandparents, our grandparents, all of them are like in our soul, and it's like we're all reincarnated into a continuum?
Yes, you are incarnated into a continuum. So what I do is assist people to access that fabulous sound. Like, Peggy, what is something that you really like to do? Or maybe something you like to cook or eat, but what is something you really love to do that resonates with you?
I like to draw house plans.
Okay, you like to draw house plans. Okay, so you might have been an architect in another timeline, and it's familiar. It's called the familiar. It's familiar to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I try to make it look like a castle.
So I would say, if I was doing a session with you, to find out. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend, and she's actually sitting over here now with me, and she is a social worker. And she said when she was a little girl, she would like to be a social worker. Now, who would know a little girl about being a social worker, really?
Right.
Either a teacher or a nurse or a mom, right?
Or secretary, yeah.
Yeah, or a secretary, that was it. And so we did this session, and the information came out, And so I went to the computer and I felt that she was like pretty famous or something. And it turns out that she was a famous worker in Australia at the turn of the century who went into pharma and loved working with children. And that it looks just like her. Isn't that amazing?
Can you repeat that? That my internet
There.
just broke up just as you were saying that.
Yeah, as when I did the research on her, I found out that she was a very famous social worker in Australia at the turn of the century.
Okay.
And it looks just like,
Cut out.
wow, are we here?
Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness, isn't it? I know everybody's having these issues, and you know, I was on a Zoom call last night and it got cut off. So anyway, that was the exciting part. So when I started writing this book, and then I looked at all these words, like what is a chakra? It's just a Sanskrit word that means circle. And you know me, Miss Practical. I have to be practical. You know, here's an example of practicality. I'm 8 years old. I raised my little hand in the 3rd grade and I said to my teacher, well, if Columbus discovered America, how come people were living here? And he gave me a term, Peggy, at 8 years old that I use today. And he said, Sherry memorized it and passed the test. He didn't offer me any explanation. So I knew, but he sent me on a course of studying. And the library became one of my favorite places, not the school library, but the adult library, because I was looking for something. So I was a researcher and didn't even know it. And so I thought, what do you mean memorize it and pass the test? So I teach cellular memorization, which is the duality programs. Like you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. You know, we have access in our body to all this knowledge that it has been programmed out of us through the left computer brain. And I actually have charts on how the body works. I had a doctor here this last week, and he said, Sherry, you know more about the physical human body. I'm not pumping myself, really, but you know it too. Most people just haven't had the opportunity. And that's the part of teaching people conscious instead of the duality BS programs. As you so eloquently called it, bullshit.
I find this interesting because maybe a month ago, I had brought up my feelings about reincarnation because I've had guests that do believe that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just not getting it. And I said, but I can conceive of, and I described it kind of what you're saying, to where, you know, our great-great-grandparents or grandparents, like they're all continuum on with us, that we don't have to start fresh, that there's some help there. Like some people might say it's guardian angels that's around us, but it just feels like they're a part of us.
They are, and that's part of our experience. And that is just I've assisted people to transition. We call it death. And it's a wonderful experience that, because like where you leave, this is duality, you know, oops, I did it again. So where you leave is where you pick up. So if somebody goes out angry or whatever, so I have assisted even family members and people in hospitals or hospice to get really clear about themselves so they go out happy or more complete instead of going out in pain and rage.
Or afraid.
Or afraid. And that's what I did with my brother. It took 5 hours and he didn't leave afraid at all. And it was wonderful. And his family got to witness it because they were in the hospital room. And though he is my brother, it's still, he's a person. And so I don't look at people as the label of brother, niece, or sister, whatever. I look at them as these amazing individuals that I'm so fortunate to be connected to.
It'd be nice if the hospitals had some kind of packet they could give people, whether it's the emergency room or, you know, in the hospital room, wherever they know someone is going to be going through the dying process, to some kind of packet to say, if you like, you know, not mandatory, but if you like, here is a way to walk them home.
Yes, it would be wonderful, but they don't do that. Right. But the ones that I've assisted, it's because their families knew me or they knew me and asked me. One lady, I even assisted her over the phone. She was on the East Coast and she called me and she said, Sherry, I'm so ready to leave. And my family keeps bugging me and hanging on. They don't get it. Like, I'm ready to go. And so it took us about 2 or 3 hours. And she got really complete and comfortable. And she said, I thank you so much. And she said, the number 3 is coming up to me. I go, okay, well, it's your information, not mine. And 3 days later, she left.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about people that die alone, where they don't have family, or say like COVID, you can't have people in the room, or it's an accident and you've only got like an hour and your family can't get there. You know, to have some kind of system that this will help you in this time. I don't know. I mean, everybody has to say that, you know, they have a hospital chaplain, but you know, for some people that just doesn't fit.
And it doesn't fit because and what I've discovered is everybody has their own ideas of what it is. And I mentioned this a lot. When I was in Michigan, there was a woman who was getting her PhD in near-death experiences. I did not do any research, none. But what I did was I assisted her to put the research together that would make sense, you know, in the timelines. And there were 12 people that had NDEs, and 10 have no interest in coming back. Including me, but I wasn't part of it. But there were 2 that couldn't wait to get back here. This is not a judgment, but their belief systems and their hellfire and damnation religion was they would go to hell. They were told from children, and guess where they went? So you create where you leave is where you pick up. So you create where you leave, whether you're conscious of it or not. And that's what I have through the years of working with NDEs. Or I've worked with, even though this is about NDEs, I have worked with abductees. And it was the same experience. And after supporting them and working with them, they were never abducted again because it changed their resonance.
Are you talking about UFO abduction?
Yes. Yeah. And I've had many encounters over the years, but I've never been abducted. You know why? My friends say because if they took me on, they would call Washington and they would demand money to take me back.
Have you ever noticed that these people tend to be negative blood?
Not necessarily, but it is the DNA factor.
How's that?
Because they're looking for certain programs in the DNA. Okay, now I'll bring this up. I'm going to sound like a program here. I just wrote this book. It's called Busting Out of the Matrix, Be Free. And this is getting like 5-star ratings across the board. So I explain about resonance and what is going on in the DNA. It's a program. It's a duality program. And so it's a program of duality, good and bad, high and low, but it's actually imprinted in how we got it. And it has to do with other races. I call the interlopers. I even named them of how they affected, effected, and infected our DNA. So sometimes what they're looking for are those individuals that they infected in the DNA with theirs. And that's why they get abducted.
Like a long time ago, like ancient?
Yes. When humans, and that's part of Sitchin's book, but I knew it before and I just adored him. But the DNA was actually manipulated in a petri dish. So what I'm doing now is actually teaching individuals to connect to being a real human before the interference in the DNA, before the petri dish. And I'm also assisting us to create a resonance for the new earth. We don't have to go anywhere. It's like building on an addition. So I'm actually teaching individuals in a resonance to be conscious of how to create a new earth. And that's what I'm doing. It's really exciting. It is. And all the books and all of that stuff, I'm not doing a sell job here, but it was like the steps. And now and I'm actually just started a new book on the history of the duality universe and the different races and how they have affected, effected, and then infected us in the DNA. And so a lot of our issues that we have in our tissues weren't human to begin with. I know this is outrageous. This is.
Well, I've been trying to find on the internet and I can't find a clear answer. There isn't one because I'm O negative. So most people are positive blood. So, you know, when I conceive a child, my body is going to tack that baby as a foreign object.
Yes.
Because they're positive blood and I'm negative, and they're going to attack it as if it's alien. Yes. And there's no clear answers as to why. And I've heard this, and later I heard that wasn't true. So I don't know. But I heard that O negative blood is the only blood that cannot be cloned.
Okay, so I would offer you this, Peggy, and I would offer a complimentary session for you for having me as a guest on this. And so we will get you your answers because you have them inside of you. I would be most honored to do that. And if you'd like,
I mean, have you heard of that? Like what I'm talking about?
Yes, I have. And I will be happy to even, or you can get it on Amazon. It's only $19, or you can get it on Kindle but I love the book. And the interesting part that this book, I'm not doing a sell job to your audience, but people called me and said, I can feel the energy in this book more than even this book or the other book, because it was so infused, because they get it. But, you know, if you'd like to take me up on it, you can. And if you don't, it's okay. I don't take anything personal.
Yeah, I've just had questions and I don't get any answers. And
you have the answers inside you. And I actually have a sense of two of the interloping races of people that interfered, and that's why you have the negative blood.
And I've done these little polls on near-death experience groups and asked, if you had an NDE, what is your blood type? And although negative blood's like 10% of the population, 7%, I was getting about 85% all the time, every time I do one of these polls, of people with negative blood. So it seemed to me like, just by these small polls I was doing, that people tend to be negative blood. Like maybe we die differently. Maybe our cells or something is different, but we died differently and we have these experiences. I don't know.
But it is a difference, because there is no such thing as dying. There isn't. I call it a near life.
But you know what I mean? The physical death.
Yeah, but you're always physical in whatever form. And so one of the things that I'm picking up is both Arcturian. Can I ask you something? Did your family drink or anything like that?
Just my stepfather, and not my biological.
Okay, that's because I've just asked for a reason. But I do feel that there was Arcturian, and people think, you know, I'm channel Arcturians or the Pleiadians or something, they're smarter. No, they're not. They're all duality in this universe, and we're influenced by and affected and affected and infected by the programs of the reptilians.
I saw a big old family black and white picture of my mom's family, and they're all cross-eyed, either both eyes or one eye. It's a scary looking thing. Because, you know, people see cross-eyed and they assume, you know, low intelligence, and that's not the case. But here they are with all these eye issues.
And it's because they don't like what they're seeing. I kid you not. I could do that too. Really. But that's what it is. But I also see Cirrus too. So it's Cirrus. So there could be in that genetic coding in here. So this is going to be outrageous to, I would say, your audience, but 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, I was invited to this conference for physicists. Matter of fact, many physicists tell me that I scare them, that I'm like 200 years in the future. I go more than that. Get over it, you guys. And so we laughed a lot. I kid you not. Actually, I had a couple of physicists in my class one day, and I taught them about time, what it really is. And they said, Sherry, that's brilliant. Like, I go, how did you do that? And I go, you're the physicist. How come you didn't come up with it, you dummies? And they just laughed and thought it was funny because of my weird sense of humor. But I was at this conference and I met this young physicist. And a couple of weeks later, I emailed him and I said, you know, I know that if you get conscious outside of duality, that you don't require the DNA. Well, he immediately emails me that day right back and says, I'm at a conference for international physicists, and this Russian physicist just proposed that. And so about 4 years ago, I had my DNA tested and it came back unreadable. Now, I didn't do 23andMe. I don't even believe in that. I know why they're doing that. But anyway, just throw that out as a little tidbit. And so I did it through the medical model and it came back unreadable. So we did it again, unreadable, the powers that be. And so my doctor, I asked her, could you please get it for me? Why does it? And they said they have it, but it's not available to them. Isn't that interesting? So we have a lot to talk about, Peggy.
One of my sons did one of those. I think it was a 23andMe, and he's not related to his dad's side at all, just mine. I thought that was weird.
Yeah, that's why I do believe it was from the other individuals. Isn't that something that overcame that? So it isn't always what we think it is in the terms of duality that we've been, exposed to in the idea that Columbus discovered America, and he actually had a map. And the map, there's a copy of it, and top of copy, Istanbul, Turkey. That was a copy of a map that was taken from the air by his name was Admiral Perry Reese. So I mean, all that stuff that we've been taught is just ridiculous. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So I love your essence of you, and I love the fact that we're some of the things you're connected. And I just assist people to remember. That's all. And that's the best part, because when you get into that knowledge of yourself, it's so amazing. So now the thing that my mother used to say to me when I was a kid, Sherry, where did you come from? Now it makes me happy. Before I was insulted.
Was there something specific that happened in your second NDE that when you had your third, you thought, good, I get to stay? I mean, was there some longing there?
Well, actually, I never said good, I could stay.
Okay.
But
Okay.
no, the second one really gave me some insight that I didn't have to run a duality program, that I had to do it, grow up, get married, have to live, whatever, because I didn't do that. But it gave me the ability to really stand for myself and say, I'm going to do it. And my idea was always to be an entrepreneur, was always to have a business of something, because I just liked it. It wasn't busyness. And so I loved it. And I actually ended up with 3 businesses and loved it. And I felt very fulfilled. And then when, I finally said, I have to go off and do something else. And I had the, without blaming him, oh, you're my ex-husband and you're going to go and I never did that. Never. Matter of fact, when I left, I just up and left, Peggy. I never even told anybody. And I was very well known in the community that I lived in. And everybody was shocked, because I didn't do a trauma drama. Oh, I'm not getting along with my husband and he's doing this, or I don't get along with I could never do that. It was just time. I was complete, done, finite, out the door. And so then
I was the same way. I didn't do a drama thing. 16 years of marriage, but I didn't do a drama. Like he said, he wanted this and this, fine,
Yeah, that's how I was. I just can't do the dramas. It just is ridiculous. So it was very interesting. And so I'm very grateful to that third near-death experience and meeting those wonderful people. Not that I didn't meet other ones along the road, that they were great. You hear my kitty in the background meowing. But the fact is, stick to facts. So I don't stick to conjecture or emotionality. So emotions, honestly, if your audience takes anything away from this, if they choose to, I'm not selling you here, emotions are the core of every disease on this planet or any other planet. It's emotions. And so they have come up with a thing to control and manipulate people further is emotional intelligence. I promise all of you, I will swear on the Bible, the Quran, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Hoochie Coochies, whatever it is, there is not 1 ounce of intelligence and emotions. That is the core to every disease. And I actually outline what the disease is and the emotionality connected to it.
Now, what kind of intelligence do you think created all of this? The system?
Well, I will give you a tidbit into the new book I'm writing. Would you like to know that?
Sure.
Okay, so this universe was developing. There's many universes, multiverses, many. And there are other duality ones, but I'm a snob. So I do not allow any people to come and talk to me unless they're non-duality. I am that much of a snob. So, and then I'll give you this. So if someone comes to me and said, I'd like to channel to you, they have to fill out my application. I kid you not. Like, who are you? What's your name? Speak in my language, and don't give me any woo-woo, dealer beloved, we're gathered here. No, like, I'm practical. You get like, how can that? And it's been amazing. So I'm actually in touch with over 67 races of people that are non-duality. But now what happened here was this wonderful young universe having great, and I even taught people how universes come together long before. And one of the physicists, at 15 years after I was teaching this, he actually showed it on TV. It was, and my clients and friends are calling me, remember when you told us that like 15 years ago? I go, you know it too. You all know it. And so these reptilians, whatever you want to call them, and here in the here in the world we call them the Illuminati or the Cabal or whatever, or Exxon or Pfizer, so just whatever the name is, just putting that out there. they came through the wormhole because they were destroying. That's what all they do. And they're not human. They're AIs. Hello, they're AIs. I'm just telling you the truth. And they came through. And actually, they came into the first Pleiades. This is going to be in my new book. And the first Pleiadians, and there's more than 8. There's more. I mean, more than 7 Pleiades. It's just what you could see with the naked eye.
How do you know this stuff?
Because I was there and watched it.
No, you're saying during your NDEs, you were there and watched it.
No, that's my history. I remember them.
Oh, in memory.
In my cellular memory.
Okay.
And so the Pleiadians, the first group, they were very, very conscious and they could cloak and do everything. So they knew they were coming, didn't affect them. So they were out the door. By the time they hit the second set of Pleiades, and there's more than 7, honestly, they weren't able to. And actually, Zechariah Sitchin writes about the Nibirians, Anunnaki. Anunnaki simply means astronaut in Sumerian. That's all it is. Remember, I'm the practical girl, just disseminate the information. And so what they did was they escaped and they went in, I believe it was Orion. And so actually the scientists now, the astrophysicists feel that Nibiru is in Orion. So they found this little planetoid and they actually created it, their planet. And that's why they created the atmosphere with the gold. And they were very, very tall and they were Hebrews. They were actually Jewish or Hebrews. That's what they are. And so that's what they did. So these 8 races. And the reason that we love that white's good and black is bad is because the race of the reptilians, I can't believe we're talking about this, were white. And so that's why white is the good guys and duality and black is the bad guys. And so guess my favorite color besides red is black. I love black.
No, people are going to hear that and think she's being racist.
I know, and I'm not. It's like ridiculous because I have friends of all colors, ages, and stages all over the place. So it's like ridiculous. But that's my favorite color. I can't help it, And I always put out all life matters. I don't care if it's a tsetse fly. All life matters because that's what this is about. So then that's what they did. They started rolling through the different places and burn them up. And so in certain places, I started assisting people to get out of duality. So then I showed up here a few times. And I haven't been on this planet that many times. But
there's no belief in God and Jesus and angels and heaven and all that we talk about in any of what you're talking about. Is that correct?
Well, actually, Jesus was a Pleiadian. And so was Donald Trump. But everybody's looking for him to save us. So
what?
We thought Donald Trump, a Pleiadian.
Pleiadian?
Yeah.
What's that?
It's just another being, like somebody tells you you're Polish or you're Irish or whatever.
How's Donald Trump also one? I don't get it.
Because that's the genetic background. I can't believe I'm saying this on here.
Trump has a genetic linkage to Jesus?
Well, and the fact is we're all Jewish because the first set of the Nibirians that came in, they were Hebrews. If you look at the drawings of them from way back when in Sumer or what even Egypt, they're Semitic looking. So I believe in the source. The source is creativity. So Peggy, in the Bible or any of them, it says in the beginning, what did God do in the beginning? Create. Right?
Adam and Eve. Heaven and earth.
In the beginning, he created, he or she or whatever. So the fact is, that's what we came here to do. So it says, Jesus said, you shall do as I do and more. He did not create a religion. He said, you shall do as I do and more. Why do we do less? Isn't that wild? And or you're creating God's image. So as a little girl, I go, if we're creating God's image, why do we do less? We are God. Peggy, you are God. You're just not a God, but you are the godness. I call it the godness within you. I even have a chart that shows you how to do it. It's so amazing. It's the 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. It's create, implement, manifest, and through your heart, actualize. That's the 4 letters. Create, implement, manifest, and actualize.
Are atheists more prone to your books than Christians?
No, I have a lot of Christian clients, and they tell me it makes sense to them now. And they even love Jesus even more. But I've had Muslim clients. I've had, atheist clients. So I don't label them. Remember, it's unconditional acceptance. I'm not going to wrong you. It's how does what you believe serve you? Does that make sense? No. So here's a belief system. And I'm not writing this, But I could say I'm a Christian, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm an agnostic, but my belief system is that it's okay to kill you. No,
That's
it's not. And how many people went to church that genocided all of the Jews or the Gypsies? What gave them the right? Or that 6 million Armenians were killed by Turks. I'm not wronging Turks. They got some great stuff in Istanbul, Turkey, in their in Topkapi, in their museum. But what gives us the right to kill? So if God is that unconditional, then when people say, you know what, God told me to do this, that it was okay to kill somebody else because they didn't agree. That didn't even make any sense to me, even as a kid. I mean, I didn't get it.
Oh.
Or you hate somebody because they're a different color. I don't get that. I never did. And it's not that I'm being, pie in the sky. It's I never was like that, even as a kid. It made no sense. That's why practical is. So how you believe in God is how you're believing in yourself. So if you believe that God says it's okay to kill someone, then it's okay to destroy life, and that's a belief system. That's not believing. So I've had clients of all ages and stages, all backgrounds that I've worked with. But if someone called me and said, you know what, would you please come and assist somebody to transition, but we are a whatever that is, of course I would. It's whatever your experience is in this particular timeline, but you've been it all. Absolutely, you've been it all. Isn't that fascinating? And so you say, you know what? I think I'll give this a go this time.
Okay.
So it makes no sense to me.
So what was your NDEs like?
Well, I will tell you, and I'm going to preface this first. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
One of my clients, her father was a millionaire, bazillionaire. Like if he left you $1 million, it would be like me giving you $100, right? And her mother was very jealous of her and told him, if you leave her anything, I will get you. Okay. So now I meet him and he's 92. This is hilarious. And so he wasn't going to leave her anything. And his son was a billionaire too. It didn't matter. So I said to him, you know what? And this is what I said to him, really. Now, audience, please don't pass out. Remember, I rattle people's molecules. And I said, so he's telling me this, that he's feeling guilty because he can't leave his daughter any money, right? $1 million would have been nothing. Honestly, it would have been pocket change. So I said, okay, sir. I said, now let me get this straight. This bitch has been dead for 10 years. And he looks at me and his eyes get really big. And I said, so she's telling you this woman has transitioned. So she is living in a different dimension, and who's controlling your life? And he looked at me and there was like a little smile on his face. He goes, well, she is. Right. I go, I said, so, sir, do you believe that when you transition, you go down a tunnel? He said, yes, I do. I then said, pick another tunnel and don't go down the one where she's at the other end of it. Isn't that funny? And guess what? He left her money. Isn't that funny? But he was scared. The woman's gone. What is she going to do if you allow her to haunt you? It's because you choose to do that. Get over it. But he saw the absurdity in it, especially when I said, look, the dead bitch has been gone for 10 years. Now, I wasn't judging her, but he was living in the sphere. And you know what? He finally transitioned peacefully. So I never went down the tunnel because someone told me if I went down the tunnel, my relatives would be meeting. And I said, if I went down the tunnel and I met my relatives, they better damn well have a job. I'm an entrepreneur. So that one of my clients said, I can just see you. I'm going to have a video. She won't go down the tunnel. Give me a ship or something, or a vehicle, or a Corvette or something, but I'm not going down the tunnel. So that is really a belief system. And it's not right or wrong, but the tunnel you come into is the birthing canal. And I have assisted people through 9 months of being pregnant. I have been in the delivery rooms, whether it was a home birth or a regular in the hospital, and it makes a difference. I even wrote an article for a famous baby doctor called, Baby's First Connection. And they're all clients, and it was an art newsletter, but it was really, really well received because it was their experience. And so when I leave, I know exactly where I'm going. And I'm very grateful that I'm here on the planet now, but I'm very grateful to know that where I'm going, because I've already chosen it and I know how I'm getting there.
What
So
did you choose?
I'm actually going to dimension hop. I'm not going to go to one place. I love to explore.
Excuse me, what?
I love to explore, so I'm going to dimension hop, but I'm not going to any dimensions that are duality. They're all non-duality, and they might
My
not look.
mother thinks that will control where she's going. She says, I'm not going to heaven or hell. I'm going to stay and haunt you kids and make you miserable. And now she's saying that she's going to haunt us and kill us.
Ooh, wow. Wow. That's interesting. But you are in charge. So I take the word control into being in charge. So you're in charge. So we are all in charge of where we go, of how we leave and what we do. And so when I look back through,
I don't think so. I'll just
Oh,
throw
no.
that out there.
That's
We're just
okay.
different.
Exactly. And there's room for all of that. I would never judge that ever. Any more than when my brother looked at me and smiled and said, I'll be back. And I go, I know he will. And he's coming back to the same family. He's never given him up. I know he's going to come back to his granddaughter. Isn't that funny? He's just, he was just the best. He was just amazing. And so it's your continuum. So where you go is up to you. And I'm an explorer. So I like, I was, when Elon Musk or whoever, no, it was the other guy that does Virgin Air. He said he'll take you out to space. And I go, you can take me out on a one-way ticket and just blow me out put me in a tube and shoot me out into space. I'll be happy. I don't have a problem with that. It's funny. And because space is amazing. They say, in the dark matter, there's all kinds of life in the dark matter. But all you have to do, so I just assist people to remember being fully conscious outside of duality that gives us all these opportunities. Doesn't that sound much more interesting than having to be confined?
No, honestly, I don't get it. I mean, you say you saw this, and so you write books about it, and wealthy people are partaking, it sounds like.
No, not at all. I have clients that are millionaires, but I have clients that don't have anything. It doesn't matter. I don't judge anybody by what they have. I don't judge them by who they,
I assume you charge for your service.
Oh yeah, because I'm a medical intuitive. I assist people to get rid of stage 4 cancer, off of depression. I actually, one year when this kid was 21, he was in a meth house. He was in a meth house. Did he call his family to get him? No, he called me.
He what?
He called me to get him, and I went in. No money. Did I say no? Absolutely not. No, I don't. I work with anyone who is willing to work with themselves. And this is what I do as a profession, and I invented it. And that's why I've written the books. And that's why I do Insider Secrets of the Shift for $15 for 2 hours, every other week for 2.5 hours to give them information. It's Insider Secrets of the Shift on Eventbrite. We just did one last night, 2.5 hours. And the only reason I charge $15 is I have to pay Eventbrite. And so I do Facebook Live on Conversations with Sherry Anshara. I don't charge for that every Tuesday. On Conversations with Sherry Anshara, I'm on Pacific Standard Time, and I talk about all kinds of stuff. So I probably give more because I just am focused on people being who they are. And if that's what they believe, I totally support them. I do not attempt or try, and I'm not looking for followers. I'm not a motivational speaker. I am not doing network marketing, though I do some products that are because I love them. I am only interested in supporting you, Peggy, or whoever it is, to be themselves and to get their own information. That's it. I don't heal anybody. I don't take my energy and push it into somebody. I just find that deplorable. but to support you. So if someone tells me, will I heal them? I go, what do I look like? A tube of crazy glue? No, I'm not going to fix you. You're not broken. You might be goofy, but you're not broken. And I use humor a lot. And actually, I'll throw this out to you. This book here, The Intelligence Code, this was written by 14 of my clients. And there's famous people in here in their industry. And there was one gal that was in a depressed area of Ohio and was making like 14,000 a year. And after working with me, she made 80 living in the same. It's not about money, money's energy, but she recognized her value. Fabulous hairdresser, fabulous. But she had no worth or value because that's what duality teaches us, that we have no worth or value. And that's not the truth. So I would never measure anybody by their paycheck. And I don't measure. Matter of fact, they teach people to dump the yardstick.
Okay. Is there any last words you want to give?
Well, if they'd like to look at my website, I'm working on a new one. It's SherryAnshara.com, SherryAnshara, SherryAnshara.com. And that word Anshara was given to me in my third NDE. It's a Sumerian name, means she came from the heavens. But remember, watch out, so does birds, so whatever. And you can connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn. And my phone number is 480-609-0874, 480-609-0874. And you can download, and you can download. I have a free ebook called Getting Your Answers in 10 Minutes. And I just love assisting people to be themselves. And that's what counts. Do not be a label or a definition. And I would part with this. I have a Sherryism. What I say makes my day. And what I say can make or break someone else's day. So in that, I teach wordology is your biology and how we speak to ourselves. So say this to yourself in your own words. How I'm treated is how I give people permission to treat me, as well as myself. And that's a Sherryism. So I love creating that stuff. Isn't that so fun?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Sherry.
Thank you so much, and keep in touch. And when you get this done, please send me the link and we will put it everywhere.
I will.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.